Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. Welcome to our strategic conversation today with Ambassador Zhang Ming. Mr. Zhang Ming is Ambassador of China to the European Union. And Ambassador, we're delighted that you're joining us for this strategic conversation. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Shada Islam. I'm Director for Europe and Geopolitics here in Brussels for Friends of Europe. I'm teleworking, working from home. We're still in complete lockdown. And I'm sure many of you are as well, joining us from across the world, from the four corners of the world for this conversation. We've had actually four strategic conversations. The first one was with Jaya Ratnam, the ambassador of Singapore to the European Union. We then went to Addis and had a conversation with Vera Songwe, Dr. Vera Songwe, Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Africa. And just recently, 2 days ago, we had a conversation also with Gunnar Wiegand, who's Managing Director for the European External Action Service for the Asia Pacific. And today we have Ambassador Zhang Ming. Ambassador, you've been here for 2.5 years. I've been following Europe-China relations for almost 30 years. And anyone doing that, like I have, we know that this is always been, and I think will continue to be, a bit of a roller coaster ride. We're up one day, down the other. We agree, we disagree, we're complicit, we have discord, we cooperate, and we compete. And in this COVID-19 world, this landscape that we're living in, issues have become even more complex and complicated. There are allegations and counter-allegations of politics of generosity, of mass diplomacy, a battle of narratives. But even as we engage in these geopolitical battles, we know two things. We will have to work together, all of us, China, Europe, the United States, the entire world, if we're going to find that vaccine against COVID-19. And as we move out of this lockdowns, as we go into an exit strategy, we have to rebuild this devastated world economy. Trade has come to a standstill, tourism has fallen, and millions of people across the world are really without jobs at this moment. So we're facing a very dire global situation. We have to work together. It has to be all hands on deck. So, Ambassador, I would like to ask you a personal question, many things to discuss, and our friends from across the world will be joining us on Twitter with the hashtag FOE debate, so please do so. But before we start talking about these serious things, I want to ask you a personal question. You've been kind enough to join us here. You're in Brussels, you're physical distancing from your colleagues, you're at the mission, and you're in constant contact with Beijing, but also with your colleagues here in Brussels. What's it like to be a digital diplomat, a digital ambassador at the moment?
Thank you, Shada, for organizing this video conference. And hello, everyone online. And well, really, it's a difficult time. And a Euro time, not only for me and for everybody. And of course, as diplomats, I believe we are part of the local communities. We share the hard time with the local people together. And also, like my neighbors, my wife and I, and my colleagues and their families go to balcony at 8 o'clock every evening to clap and cheer for the medical workers. And given what China has been through in the past months, we fully understand what is happening now in Europe. And also we know how important it is to observe the containment measures. Diplomats need to follow the laws and the rules of the host country. And as diplomats, we don't have immunity, only one way affected. But we don't want to be affected. So I often tell my colleagues, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And since we are here, we must contribute to the solution together with the local people. Of course, lockdown does have a major impact on the exercise of functions. We cannot meet and talk face to face. And fortunately, technology helps with phone calls, with video conferences like this. Communication does not stop. I've been reaching out to or been reached by European friends. The discussion is centered around how to overcome the pandemic and how to push our common agenda forward together, something like that.
So, Ambassador, as I was saying earlier, we're now in our exit phase. Hopefully, we'll be coming out of this lockdown. And many people are looking to China, as we did in 2008, when there was also a financial crisis, not this big, of course. Everything around the world has come to a standstill. We have to rebuild our shattered and our battered economies. And many people are saying, well, China now is also in an economic slowdown. Will China be able to give the world a hand? Will you be able to encourage spending? Will you be able to keep your markets open? Will China be part of this recovery as it was in 2008?
Well, people often compare this crisis with the 2008 crisis. IMF even forecast a worst recession since the Great Depression. In face of a global crisis, we need openness, cooperation, and multilateralism. China, together with the EU and other major economies, have a joint responsibility to help the global economy keep in shape and to reduce the impact on global trade and the supply chains. As the second largest economy, China will definitely contribute its share to a stable world economy. As announced by Chinese leadership, we will continue to pursue a proactive fiscal policy and a prudent monetary policy, boost domestic demand, encourage consumer spending, and raise the public spending, something like that. We will continue to deepen opening up, expand imports, and outbound investment. Of course, such investment only take place after the European review or check. We are steadily resuming production while fighting the virus. These measures, I believe, will be helpful. And recently, G20 finance ministers, including China, agreed on a plan to relieve the poorest countries of debt payments. China is also committed to help those countries in difficulties through our bilateral consultation.
So China is going to offer Africa also debt relief measures as other countries have promised to do.
Yeah, and we have a very close cooperation with the African countries, just as European countries with the Africa. And we are in close contact with our African partners to work together to overcome the difficulties and the pandemic and also the poor condition, economic condition, and something like that.
Right. Ambassador, another thing that we want to ask you about really, and people are quite intrigued and interested, as China is coming out of its lockdown, what are the lessons that we can learn as we embark on a similar exercise? I think it's gradual opening of businesses, of non-essential services, but also a great focus on the use of technology to make sure that people stay safe even as they come out of these lockdowns. What can you share with us?
Well, first of all, it's encouraging to see positive signs in Europe. New infections are slowing down in some countries, including Belgium, where we are. And some are beginning to adopt an exit strategy. The situation is different from one country to another, so measures have to adapt. But we are always ready to share our experience with others, but never impose it to anyone. Actually, when China was still at a difficult stage in February, we already thought about how to restart a business in some key sectors. The governments, I mean the central government and the local governments of the provinces, because the situation was different from one province to another. So the government rolled out policy incentives to help companies, especially SMEs. So far, nearly 90% of them have returned to business. In the process of decontainment, it is crucial to prevent the resurgence of the virus. So we conduct a strict health check through massive testing to ensure only the healthy could go back to work. Social distance is very, very important. And also the facial mask, we believe it's essential. I don't know why you dislike it in Europe, but in Asia, we believe it's essential. It's very necessary. And a doctor told me that the mask will help the healthy people with the extension of the social distance. And we also keep a close eye on patients without symptoms. Well, the virus, the novel coronavirus is very complicated and very cunning. And so it's not easy.
Right.
Given the global nature of the pandemic, there is a need for better coordination. No one is safe until everyone is safe. It is up to all of us to find solutions and minimize consequences. Anyway, China and Europe are always strong partners along the way.
Right. Thank you very much. Mr. Ambassador, there are, of course, as I said initially, allegations of geopolitical games becoming entangled in this pandemic. And China has been accused of disinformation campaigns, accused of covering up the real number of people, the victims of coronavirus, and also of engaging in this so-called politics of generosity. Is China really using this pandemic, this rather tragic situation, to expand its global outreach and to become more of a global power? Are you trying to win this geopolitical battle at this time?
Well, to help people in difficulties is the tradition for Chinese, for European, for all the civilizations, I think. And COVID-19 is a human tragedy, not a playground for politics. As WHO pointed out, we are fighting both the pandemic and the infodemic. Disinformation is an enemy for all of us, and it should be addressed by all of us. From the very beginning, China has suffered a lot from the disinformation. It's very bad for the fighting against the pandemic. At the most difficult moment in fighting the virus, China received a kind of assistance from Europe. It's widely covered by Chinese media. My mission tweeted the press release of the commission. Chinese people spoke highly of EU's aid, and no one said it's politics of generosity, something like that. No, never. And China's help to Europe, like Europe's help to China, is a sign of solidarity, not a political calculation. Apart from Europe, China is also cooperating with Africa, just like I mentioned just now, and other vulnerable regions. And the EU is doing similar things. And this is about serving public good, not a political game. And we'd better to forget politics now. We are in a very special time. We are in a battle between the sapiens and the virus. We cannot start another battle, a battle between a group of the sapiens and another. It's wrong. Anyway, no matter what kind of labels are put on China's efforts, we will continue to do the right thing. That is to extend a helping hand and save as many lives as possible. This is what really matters.
Right. Ambassador, thank you for that. There's a question coming in about the fact that the European Union will soon, I think, launch a global coalition in line with G20 conclusions to gather many countries, foundations, and international organizations to pledge together for COVID vaccines, diagnostics, and treatment research. Several countries are expected to join in. Is that some kind of an initiative that China would value and like to become part of?
Well, EU colleagues have told me about the pledging event. Beijing is taking a close look at the invitation. We share the view that it is important to mobilize more resources for vaccine development and for the work of WHO. Yesterday, China announced additional $30 million to WHO. And on the basis of the previous $20 million, we hope to contribute to the global fight against the virus, especially in developing countries.
Right. And another question that's come in is, of course, about Europe-China relations per se. There was a summit to be held in March, and that was postponed. There's another summit coming up in Leipzig with the German presidency. Not sure whether that will be a physical face-to-face meeting or perhaps by remote as well. And one of the key issues that was being discussed, and you referred to it a bit, was the bilateral investment treaty as the first step to actually getting something down on paper in terms of EU-China investment flows. Where are we at with those negotiations? Have they come to a standstill?
Well, COVID-19 is affecting the original schedule between China and the EU. Yet it does not paralyze our communication, nor undermine our shared commitment to the comprehensive strategic partnership. The two sides have been in close contact to prepare for the high-level exchanges for this year. We aim to deliver positive results and bring our relations forward. On the bright side, the pandemic shows once again that China and EU should be partners, not rivals. the pandemic could be an opportunity for both China and the EU to explore new areas of cooperation. The BIT talks keep going on. Last Friday, 1 week ago, my Vice Premier, Mr. Liu He, had a conversation with Mr. Dombrovskis, both two strongly committed to push forward the negotiation of the BIT. Only 2 or 3 days after, a new round of the talks, BIT talks, started on last Monday, and it was just concluded today. Of course, it was via video conference. I think that is a welcome step, and progress is being made. And for the China-EU summit, of course, it was postponed, but I prefer to hold it in the coming months before the Leipzig summit. Anyway, we'll keep close contact with my European partners to deal with it. And during the COVID-19 crisis, there has been a growing talk of deglobalization,
exactly,
coupling,
exactly,
and protectionism, and continuation of the BIT talks itself demonstrates that China and the EU are strong advocates for openness, for cooperation. We could play a significant role in this regard.
And Ambassador, the final questions coming in from a viewer, a participant in Asia, talking about the Asia-Europe meeting, the ASEM meeting that will be held in Cambodia at the end of the year. And as I was saying in the past, in 2008, ASEM leaders, 53, 54 countries, China was there. There was a meeting held in Beijing, and China and the other Asian countries and Europe came together and made a pledge in favor of effective multilateralism and keeping markets open because of the financial crisis in those days. Do you think the ASEM meeting this year could send a similarly encouraging message of openness and collaboration?
China and EU are both important ASEM members. In fact, public health is an important area of ASEM. And I think this cooperation will be strengthened. And especially under the current circumstances, there is a shared interest to strengthen such the cooperation. China just had a ASEAN +3 summit on COVID-19. And also in February, we had a China-ASEAN foreign ministers meeting on COVID-19. I know EU and ASEAN also had a ministerial conference on the pandemic. And there is a good basis, I believe, for Europe-Asia health cooperation for us to build on, as well as many other areas of the cooperation.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for giving us such an important information about not just China-Europe relations, but also what you're doing with other Asian countries and your plans with Africa. And the fact that your experience in coming out of the lockdown, doing things gradually, the use of masks and technology, I think these are useful tips for us to take on. And of course, we are in the middle of a very tense geopolitical landscape. US-China relations are not at the best. There are conspiracy theories, disinformation, and a lot of blame games going on as well. But I really appreciate, and I think Friends of Europe appreciate, the fact that you found time to come and talk to us about how important China-Europe relations are. And also, Ambassador, the reassurance you've given that as in 2008, China will be there, will be spending more, investing, and also keeping markets open. And of course, I hope this will be the case. We can take those conversations to the World Trade Organization and begin really a process of reform and change within the World Trade Organization as well as in other international fora. So thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you all for joining us and for the questions and comments you've sent us. Ambassador, have a good day. Everyone, stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Shada. Be careful. Be safe. Thank you.